Well, Tyler, we are continuing our march through the fish, and I just wanted to ask you, what is your favorite fish?
My favorite fish.
Yes, yeah, it's just
It's a
something
tough
just
one.
we've been marching through these bad boys,
This
and
is
I
just in
figured,
general. Like this is a.
yeah, just in general, I mean, even if you have a couple favorites, that's fine.
I really like the ocean sunfish.
The ocean
It
sunfish
kind
is
of gets a
great,
bad rap because they don't have scales, so they're like really prone to infection parasites.
and they're also kind of dumb.
They're also kind of dumb, but I also kind of like cleaner wrasse and things like the wrasse family. They're very cool. Very
That is
symbiosis
true.
is one of my favorite things to talk about.
That is very true. I know. I'm a big fan. The remora fish and the same idea is pretty cool. They kind of have that symbiosis. And I actually caught one fishing one time, and there's a picture somewhere of it suction to my stomach. It's pretty,
Awesome,
yeah, it's pretty neat.
awesome.
That was pretty neat. But welcome everybody to Life the Complete Story. We are on episode 33 now, just marching right along. And today we are talking about the
Mm-hmm. Yep.
words Aleppocephaliforms. There we go.
Yes.
Which these will be our slickheads and Circidae.
Yeah.
Make sure,
Yes. But
yeah,
as always,
Circids, yes. But first, Tyler, take it away.
well, before we start with our nature in the news, I'm Tyler, as always, joined by
And
Alex.
Alex,
Alex, my co-host. But today's Nature in the News article is published by the University of Birmingham, and we're talking new AI technology helps scientists detect which pollutants in England's lakes are most harmful to life and identify species which are at the highest risk. So when I found this article, I was really confused because I don't know why we're using AI to do this. Because it's something that we as humans do, like we just do through our own testing. So I really don't know what the AI helps with in terms of detecting the pollutants, but I can understand where they come with for like identifying the risk species because they can kind of plug it into an algorithm or whatever and be like, okay, well, these species live in this range of pH or can tolerate this much of a certain metal or whatever is in there.
it's probably something that'll allow them to do a lot, like analyze a lot more data and like organize it and like filter it a lot more quickly and efficiently.
Okay, yeah.
That'd be my guess.
They analyzed 52 freshwater lakes. They analyzed water as well as biofilm. Biofilm is like the layer on top of the lake that is like where like algae and stuff like that lives. Very important part of the
Yeah,
ecosystem.
something you really only see, or I shouldn't say only, but you very much see in those lakes, especially a lot of warm water lakes. Kind of see that, like it looks kind of sludgy, but it's like that film that's sits on top of the lake,
Yeah,
especially one that's been sitting for a while, like there hasn't been much wind to stir it up.
yeah. There's slow moving lakes that don't exactly have a lot of current or motion to them. They kind of just sit there stagnant for 90% of the time. But this technology allows them to efficiently and effectively sift through all this complex data to find the links between pollutants as well as the biodiversity loss. And they kind of concluded that insecticides as well as fungicides were the main factors that affected the biodiversity, along with 43 other physicochemical factors.
Okay. I know fungicides are very hard on the fish themselves. I don't remember if I told the story to everyone here or not about the time I actually saw a big fish kill from a over application of fungicides that ran off
No,
into
but that
like a
you
stream.
go ahead, tell it.
Yeah,
That was
so
at your internship, correct?
yeah, so I was at an internship near us to the west of Pittsburgh, and I was the land steward for a conservation area. It was just one of the properties that this conservation that they were conserving. And as I went in one afternoon to do like a public outreach activity, I kind of just was walking the property. And as I was walking along the stream, I noticed that there was a bunch of fish dead. And then as I kept walking, I noticed it was like, it wasn't just like some of the little fish, like it was fish, all the fish, big fish, little fish, even like things like the carp, the catfish, all the like the shiners, like those little bait fish, blue, like panfish. It was something that even like up on the bank as well as in like some of the deeper pockets in the river. The only place I saw like living fish was actually on the side stream that fed out of the acid mine drainage system that was on the property. They had swam up to that stream because it was clean water is where they were able to escape to. And it was crazy. So I called Fish and Boat Commission, called them out and said, and it wasn't just there, it was further downstream as well. And they traced it back to an over application, like a leaching of fungicides. Like there's a lot of golf courses in the area. They think maybe one of those had sprayed fungicides on the course, and then it rained. They wasn't given enough time to dry, and it ran off into the stream and caused a big fish kill. I don't know what else became of that. I didn't follow it that closely, and some of that information they wouldn't tell the public. But my guess is someone might have probably, if they were able to trace it back to a point, I'm sure someone received a pretty hefty fine.
Gotcha.
So, but that's something they can look at with this new technology,
Right.
it seems.
But that's really all I have for this article. You know, the power of AI, being able to efficiently, quickly kind of help us analyze our data so that we have more time to do. You can expand your studies quicker.
Yes.
Because I would assume that like a 52 lake test would take
It'd take quite a while to
years,
organize all that data.
Years to organize as well as get everything published. But this probably got it done within a couple of weeks to months in terms of analyzing, compiling, and all of that.
Yeah, and it looks like here they were able to actually use that AI to prioritize different species and identify what those chemicals that were most harmful, kind of create like a priority list of, okay, this is what we need to focus on for future studies.
Gotcha. So with that, we'll move on into our lesson for the day. As Alex said, we are talking about the Aleppocephaliforms. So these guys are called the slickheads familiarly. They're called that because they have no scales on their
heads. Like pretty much from the gill plate forward, they have no scales.
These guys are deep sea swimmers. I typically found anywhere from like 300 to 30,000 meters below the sea level. Because of that, they don't have a swim bladder, so they don't need it since they live so far down. There's not a whole bunch of fluctuation in terms of their height in the water column.
Okay. And at that point, the water gets pretty dense. So the swim bladder may cause more problems than
right.
It would be helpful in that case.
And as well as that, since it is so much pressure deep sea, they have reduced ossification in their skeletal system. So what that means is there's less calcium buildup in their bones.
They're probably a little thinner and lighter.
Yeah, lighter, thinner bones, so they don't. It helps with pressure.
Yeah.
In short.
Yeah, they'd probably be a little bit more flexible they're not quite as hard, which allows them to flex some under the changes in pressures.
So these Aleppocephaliforms, as Alex kind of said, they're grouped into two families: Aleppocephalidae, which are your typical slickheads, and then platyrochids, which are
your circids.
They're familiarly called tube shoulders.
Okay.
But we'll start with Aleppocephalidae. These are your naked heads, smooth heads, slick heads. Familiar terms for them. As I said, these guys live 30,000 meters below the surface, and they are named off of that lack of scales on the head. We have about 22 genera with 96 species. And these guys have about 80 to 100 razor-sharp teeth. Perfect. There's an image. Kind of low quality, but that's just because it's a deep sea creature.
Yes, and that
Getting
is
a high quality camera that far deep without it cracking under the pressure, very difficult.
Yes, and
very expensive.
The image I've pulled up here is the California slickhead, which is one of the extant genera of. It is Aleppocephalus tenebrosus is this specific fish.
So as you can see, it has an elongated body plan. Not super ear-like, but it is kind of stretched out. They have large eyes, as you can see in this picture, as well as spineless fins. That's not rayless. They still have rays. They just don't have the spines like some of the species we talked about prior to, like the ratfish and stuff like that.
Yeah. Typically, those spines are more for defense than anything.
Yes. Some species have photophores. Photophores are a chemical organ, would you say, that produce light producing
Yeah.
organ through some type of chemical reaction, depending on the species.
Yes.
This one, I does not appear to have any type of
It could be just a flash from the image as well as
that
making
as
it
well.
difficult to see that.
And although it's not heavily researched, there is a belief that they undergo a vertical shift through the water column as they age. So the younger ones are typically higher up in the water column because there's more like phytoplankton, or there's more plankton available for them to eat. And as they age, they go deeper down. They avoid more predators that way, and B, they don't need as much food as often since they're kind of done growing.
Okay.
With that, we'll move on into our genera. So, as Alex alluded to, there's the genera Aleppocephalus, which has 20 species. The agazes slickhead, Aleppocephalus andersoni, the Antipodian slickhead, Aleppocephalus asperifrons, the small-scaled brown slickhead, Baird smoothhead, bicolor slickhead, Aleppocephalus blandfordi, Aleppocephalus dentifer, Aleppocephalus fungulus. The long fin slickhead is Aleppocephalus longiceps. The long snout slickhead, Aleppocephalus mellis, Aleppocephalus alstoni, which is Alston slickhead. Aleppocephalus planifrons, Aleppocephalus productus is the small eye smoothhead. You have Rizzo smoothhead, the California slickhead, which is the picture that Alex has provided us, the triangulate slickhead, and the Aleppocephalus umbriceps is just called the slickhead.
Yeah. And the vast majority of these species have been identified in the late 1800s to early 1900s, although a couple of them even earlier, one or two of them in the early 1800s. So it's kind of impressive they were able to identify a lot of these species, it being deep sea species, so long ago. I'm guessing a good portion of them were probably bycatch from like trawling, like some sort of trawling fishing or something. They were deep sea fishing. They were able to catch some of these guys, and they wondered what they were.
Moving on, we have the genera Esquamaceps.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
These guys are found in all oceans. There's the Esquamaceps caerulis, Esquamaceps shorty, which is the bare throat slickhead, Esquamaceps longmani, Esquamaceps pacificus, and Esquamaceps valaris is the fan fin smoothhead. Alex, were you able to pull up a picture of?
It can do that. They look a little different than.
They look a little bit thinner.
Yes. Now this looks like an artist rendition.
It kind of looks like an ice fish.
A little bit.
Next genera we have is Aulostomatophora. This is a monospecific genus. This is Aulostomatophora phospherops, the luminous slickhead. Once again, this is an artist rendition that Alex pulled up. Kind of got a weird bill to their mouth.
A little bit, yeah.
So these guys are found in more shallow water, about 1,700 to 2,000 meters below sea level, and they're about 11 inches to a foot. My bad. Yeah, the Baja California, which is quite the genus name in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you'll never guess where they were found originally.
I'm going to guess it's near Baja California.
That would be correct.
Wow.
In 1911, you got the Baja California Equatoris, Baja California Celebes, which is the network slickhead. It's a weird name.
Mm-hmm.
The sharp-chin slickhead, the brown slickhead, the big-eye smoothhead is Baja California megalops, as pictured, and the Baja California microstoma. So they got a wide. So what makes these guys different? They kind of have a wide mouth. They have a strongly projected lower jaw.
Okay, looks like it. At least in the picture, you can see that lower jaw sticks out a good bit comparatively.
The next genus is going to be Bathylaco. We got Bathylaco macrothalamus, Bathylaco nielseni, and as pictured, Bathylaco nigricans, which is the black warrior. So I'm assuming that it's kind of darker in color, found deep sea, kind of helps with camouflage. Although they're not really predatory fish, so maybe it's more camouflage to hide than it is camouflage to.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
We have Bathyprion, which is the Bathyprion DNA that we don't have a picture, unfortunately. This is the fang-toothed smoothhead. Moving on, we have Bathytrocetus, which is another genus. These are found worldwide in those deep oceans. You got Bathytrocetus breviceps, Bathytrocetus elegans, Bathytrocetus inspector, Bathytrocetus macronathus, Bathytrocetus magalolepus is the cophoid smoothhead, Mycosaurus smoothhead, the small scale smoothhead, Bathytrocetus oligolepis, Bathytrocetus pamenheimi, the deep scale slickhead, and Zugmeyer's slickhead. We got the genus Conicara, which has Conicara bertelseni, Conicara phyolenti, which is Phyolenti smoothhead, the wrinkled slickhead, the long fin smoothhead, the elongate smoothhead, Murray's smoothhead. As pictured, we have the flathead slickhead. It's not its rendition. Conicara paxtoni, the salmon smoothhead, and the Werner's smoothhead are in that genus. Once again, found worldwide. The genus Ainara is a small genus of 2 species. Ainara edentula, the toothless smoothhead, and the loose scale smoothhead, Ainara macrolepis.
And those guys, they're a little bit smaller, only about 9 inches or 22 centimeters in length. That's kind of their average length.
Moving on, we have Herwigia, monospecific genus, the Kreft's smoothhead, found between 1,000 and 3,200 meters deep, so about 3,000 feet to 10,500 feet. These guys are kind of bigger, 16 inches long. Moving on, we got Leptochilichthys, which is 3 species, the Agassiz smoothhead, the small-scale smoothhead, and the Violence smoothhead. These guys are toothless.
They look a little bit more like a coelacanth, as you can see in the picture.
Kinda, yeah.
Their body plan, which is something we'll talk about when we get to the lobefin fish in a while.
And in a couple with oof.
It's going to be a while yet.
Yeah, they're toothless, but they have long gill rakers.
Okay.
With
filter
the
feeding.
Uptake, yeah. Leptoderma is the next one. We got the eel slickhead, which you have Leptoderma lubricum, Leptoderma macrothalum, Leptoderma macrops is the grenadier smoothhead, which is the pictured fish. Leptoderma ospacica is the eastern eel slickhead, and Leptoderma retropina. We're almost done with this group. We got another family to cover, and then we'll move on into our regular segments. We got Microphotolepis, which is 2 species, Microphotolepis multipunctata and Microphotolepis schmidti, which are, these guys are kind of newer, 1930 and 1977 is when they were identified and described. Moving on, we have Micronathus, which means small mouth, right? Nathus is mouth. This is the Micronathus normani, the beaked slickhead, found in the northeast and western Atlantic, as well as the Indian Ocean and western Pacific Ocean. And they're about 8 inches long, so kind of on that smaller side. Moving on is Narcetes. This is Narcetes aeromalis, Narcetes camohori, Narcetes lloydi, which is a Lloyd slickhead. The Yokozuna slickhead, which is the largest slickhead.
It's the one pictured.
Correct.
And being the Yokozuna slickhead being the largest species, it gets about 8 feet or 2.5 meters in length. So they get quite large and is considered the largest species of bony fish that is entirely restricted to the deep ocean. So it's the largest slickhead and the largest bony fish that lives solely out of that photic zone, like in that would be called like the bathypelagic zone.
Yes, the bathroom zone.
Yes. So they live completely absent of light.
We have Photostylus, smallest specific genus. Photostylus pycnopterus is the starry smoothhead, found about 1,000 meters to 2,000 meters and about 4.3. So this is the smallest species we've talked about so far. So we went from the biggest to the smallest.
Yeah, about 11 centimeters, 4.3 inches.
This is another monospecific genus, which has Rhinoctes nasustus, which is the abyssal smoothhead, which is the deepest living one we've talked about so far. Up, they go about 4,000 meters deep, which is over 13,000 feet. So that's over 2 miles below the surface.
Yeah, and almost pushing 3 almost.
And these guys go about 7.5 inches, 19 centimeters. About average size for what we've been talking about so far today. Next up is Rulina, named after Louis Ruhl, which is a ichthyologist, a fish studier. You have the soft-skinned smoothhead, which is pictured. Kind of funky looking.
They're a little goofy looking.
Rulina danae. Rulina eucla is the eucla slickhead. Rulina uriops, the bordello slickhead. Rulina livida. Rulina madrensis is the Madeiran smoothhead. Rulina nuda, the blunt snout slickhead. And Rulina watasa. Next is Talismania. With 11 species, you have the Antillean smoothhead. Talismania aphos, the threadfin slickhead. Talismania brachycephala. Talismania busingi. Talismania filamentosa. Talismania homoptera, which is the hairfin smoothhead. Talismania coleari. Talismania longiphilis, which is a long-tail slickhead, which is what we have pictured. Has a nice long pointed tail.
Yeah, it looks like it has some very long pectoral fins also.
Yes. The threadfin smoothhead and Talismania okinawensis.
I guess that one is found near Japan.
That's a good guess.
Or that Western Pacific area.
And our last group for these slickheads is Xenodermicthus, which has 2 species, Xenodermicthus copi and Xenodermicthus nodulosus.
And Xenodermicthus copi.
Smoothhead, yes.
Yes, that is what's being pictured here.
Correct. So we'll move on into our second family for the day, Platyrochids. Alex, would you like to cover Platyrochids?
I can do that. So Platyrochids, also known as the tube shoulders that we talked about. This family, they're also found fairly deep, not quite as deep as the the slick heads and the smooth heads, only about 300 to 1,000 meters, about 980 to over 3,000 feet deep. Some of them, I'm guessing some of the deeper dwelling species have those light-producing organs. And they are generally smaller, and a lot of the slick heads, small to medium-sized fish ranging 9 to 33 centimeters or 3.5 to 13 inches long. They're found throughout the world except for the Mediterranean Sea. So our genera that we have, first we will have Barbantus. This has 2 species. These are found more in tropical temperate areas, primarily in the Atlantic. We have Barbantus curvifrons, the pale belly cirricid, and Barbantus elongatus. Next, we have the genus Holtburnia. This has 9 recognized species, primarily found in the Eastern Atlantic, Indo-West Pacific, and Southeastern Pacific. We have the bighead cirricid, Holtburnia conocephala, Holtburnia cyanocephala, the teardrop tube shoulder, Holtburnia intermedia, the tusked tube shoulder, the streak-light tube shoulder, the big-eye cirricid, and Holtburnia ophiocephala. Next is the genus Matsuchthys is a monospecific genus, Matsuchthys equipinus, found only in the Sulu Sea, which is southwest of the Philippines, and it grows about 11.9 or 4.7 inches long. That's kind of that standard length. Next genus is Molissa. This has 5 recognized species found in the eastern Atlantic and eastern Pacific oceans. You have the sharp snout tube shoulder, the pale gold circid, Mollissia isaacsii, Mall's circid, and the small-scale circid. Next genus is Mentodus. This has 8 recognized species that are found throughout the world. You have Mentodus bithyos, Mentodus crassus, Mentodus eubrancus, Mentodus facilis, Mentodus longirostris. There you go. Mentodus messalarius, Mentodus perforatus, and then if Tyler gets his picture back up here real quick, here you go. We have Mentodus rostratus is the picture here. You can see they're a little different. They got some very large eyes. It looks like they have some small structures right at the end of the snout. I'm not sure. They're probably
Almost
some
like a barbell.
Either like a barbell, probably some sort of sensing organ. But yeah, you can see they have very large eyes, very small pectoral fins in relation to the rest of their body. Our next genus is Mirorictus. This is a monospecific genus, Mirorictus taningi. This is found in the Gulf of Panama at depths of about 1,750 meters or almost 6,000 feet, so over a mile deep. And this species grows to about a length of 14 centimeters or 5.5 inches. Next is Normicthus. This genus has 3 recognized species. This genus honors a British ichthyologist, John Roxburgh Norman. You have the Normicthus heringi, Normicthus operosus, also known as the multiple and Normicthus yacinorum. Next genus is Pectinanthus. This is a monospecific genus, Pectinanthus parini, found in the Pacific and Indian Oceans at depths of about 1,800 meters, 5,800, 700, 800 feet. This species is a little bit larger, about 16.3 centimeters or 6.4 inches. Next genus, Persparcia. This is another monospecific genus. Persparcia capua is the spangled tube shoulder, found around the world primarily in the southern hemisphere, except for around South America. These are in kind of those temperate subtropical latitudes, 30 to 50 degrees south, about 700 to 1,500 meters or 2,300 to almost 5,000 feet deep. They're about 14 centimeters or 5.5 inches long. Next genus is Platyrochids. This has 2 recognized species. You have Platyrochids apus, is the legless circid, and Platyrochids mirus is the leaf circid. And I think Platyrochids apus, it looks like it's called the legless circid because the picture here that Tyler pulled up, it pretty much has no pectoral or anal fins. Or at least if it is that anal fin, is that back one that's almost the along with the tail. So it kind of looks like it has no legs, quote unquote, because it lacks those fins along the side. Our next genus is Sagamicthus. This has 3 recognized species. The species, or the genus name, is derived from Sagami Bay in Japan, which is home to one of the first species found in this genus, Sagamicthys abi, or the shining tube shoulder. Then you also have Sagamicthys gracilis, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce that species name. It's in the regular name. It's the Schnackenbeck's circid.
Nailed it.
Yeah,
Shake and bake.
Yes, that one was crazy. Next genus is Circia. This one is a monospecific genus, Circia cophodi, or Cophid circid. These are found 450 to 1,500 meters deep, about 1,500 to almost 5,000 feet deep. It is named after a Norwegian marine biologist, Einar Kofod. These species, they grow about 15 centimeters or almost 6 inches in length. Found, as I said, in those kind of mid-deep water environments, primarily in the eastern Atlantic, the Denmark Strait, the Gulf of Guinea, those northwest Atlantic, subtropical waters, as well as the Indian and Pacific Oceans within the tropical areas. And our last extant genera is the Cirsoides. This is 2 species that are recognized. These are native to the western central Pacific Ocean, Cirsoides calvala and Cirsoides multispinus. There's one extinct genera called Vacalia, or at least it has not been described yet. It looks like it was recently, actually very recently, discovered back in 2019, so it may just not be properly
The article that it's
named yet.
referencing is an Oligocene tube shoulder from the central parenthesis, parenthesis, which is the first skeletal record for the family, Platyrochids. So it is a fossil species.
Okay. But that will do it for our lesson today on the Aleppocephaliforms. So there are 2 families we covered, the slickheads and the circids. So now that will take us into some of our regularly scheduled segments. Tyler, if you want to hit our amazing species first, so that way I have a moment to stop talking.
Today's amazing species, I couldn't really find anything on brand for the day. A lot of these guys are, deep sea. We don't have a lot of studies on them, especially in terms of population study. So I went down the hatch of the amazing species on the IUCN Ed list, and I found the Celebes crested macaque, and this picture spoke to me. He's giving me that stink eye, and I just said, "Yep, you're the one for today."
I don't know if it's a stink eye there, buddy.
He's staring me up and down.
Yeah.
But this guy is Macaque nigra, also known as Celebes crested macaque, found in Indonesia, specifically Sulawesi.
It's a very small area on one island.
A very, very small area on a single island of Indonesia.
Although it looks like there is an introduced population on another small island directly to the southeast of their native range.
Yes. So these guys clearly are primates. They've been recently assessed as critically endangered in 2015, although not published until 2020. So in the past 2 generations, so about 33 years, that's saying a generation length is 11 years. We have a 80% reduced population due to hunting pressure and habitat loss. The population on Bacan Island, which is that purple, if you could please show the map.
And do that. Give me 1 second to pull her up here.
So as you can see, this is the map that we were talking about. That yellow region in Sulawesi, that is the resident region that they were initially found, and we have since introduced them to this purple region, which is the Bacan Island. There's over 100,000 individuals as an introduced population, so they're not in this assessment per se. Good for us, we're getting places, they're just not in their resident extant region where they're like non-introduced.
Okay.
And they live kind of in a higher elevation from 200 meters up to 1,200 meters. So not quite like super high mountains, but elevated from sea level a little bit.
Yeah.
So as we said, they have that fierce hunting pressure, but there's also, habitat loss from deforestation as well as quarrying and mining. Those 3 things, timber, quarries, and ore mining can decimate natural habitats, especially forests, because you need to clear cut the entire thing, especially for mining operations. And locally, they are used as a food source.
Bushmeat.
Yeah, that bushmeat, and is occasionally sold on the pet market, nationally and internationally.
Okay. I'm sure they're protected as much as they can.
Yeah. One of those black market pets, probably.
Yeah, more than likely.
I use it as a status symbol for those rich people. But all hope is not lost. Although we don't have any, recovery plans in place or anything like that, we do have them in protected areas, as well as we do have that, introduced population on, what was that island called again? On the Bacan Island. So that's going to do it for my amazing speech for today. Alex, if you want me to, I can cover ecology encyclopedia while I'm here.
It's up to you. We can do that unless you want me to knock out my invasive species first. My most
I feel like your
wanted.
invasive species is a good one, so I'll do
Okay.
we'll finish on a banger. I'll talk about our encyclopedia article for the day. Today we're talking the Weberian apparatus. This is kind of a big word, and we're going to talk about it a lot in the next couple of weeks. So I figured it'd be really good to get out of the way now.
Okay.
So this is an anatomical structure in fish that connects their swim bladder to their auditory system. When it's fully developed in the adult fish, they're referred to as the Weberian ossicles or the Weber's ossicles. Alex has showed up
So
the
that would
image.
be this part here, I believe, where my cursor is, that kind of that right side of your screen,
Yeah.
I
So
believe.
the big sacs, that's your swim bladder, your air bladder, and towards the right side, that is the skull of the fish. So we're referring to that middle ground, which is the first couple of vertebrae, and then connect to the ears or the. So these bones grow to connect the auditory system, specifically that inner ear, to the swim bladder, and this acts as an amplifier of sound waves that would otherwise be only slightly perceivable by just the ear alone. So it acts as kind of like an amplifier to help with like sound capture.
Okay. Similar to the bones in the mammalian ear.
Yeah, like what the hammer and
Yeah.
the anvil and stuff like that. So evolutionary wise, the species we talked about today that we're going to be talking about next week. I did the research for both today, so I kind of jumbled it. Next week's species has a very primitive Weberian apparatus. So we're talking about it today, so you guys know what's going on when we talk about it next week. And this gets more evolved as you go down this branch of the teleolosts. The carp and the loaches have more advanced versions of this.
Okay.
That's my little deep dive, like little highlight for the Weberian apparatus. We'll send it over to Alex, and he will
Alright.
talk about our most wanted for the day.
Yes. So our most wanted this week is the red shiner, which is Cyprellena lutrensis. So this is a fish native to kind of the southeastern United States, that central western Mississippi River Basin and the Gulf of Mexico drainages, but also kind of westward into the Rio Grande River as well. Of course, it is this fins especially are very bright reddish orange, as well as it kind of has a spot on its head. Because it's very brightly colored, it was favored a lot in the aquarium trade, as well as kind of a flashy bait fish. In the aquarium trade, it's known as the rainbow dace. However, this has been, because it was a pet fish, it has a very big possibility of being released into the wild, and they're trying to prevent it. Specifically, the article I found is from Canada, trying to prevent it from being released into some of those waters in the Ontario province, because they are generalists. So that means they can pretty much adapt to wherever they need to. Especially they can survive in low water quality areas, which makes them gives them a very big possibility to have a heavy impact on native populations. They predate on the eggs of multiple native fish species, so it can reduce native populations, as well as it eats algae and plankton. And those, of course, algae and plankton help create healthy water systems, aquatic ecosystems. And losing that water quality, especially the algae, because those are your biggest primary producers in most aquatic ecosystems. And then since there would be a loss of a lot of that surface algae as well as native fish species to eat that algae, remaining algae can cause toxic algal blooms, further killing fish. And then as well, these shiners are also able to introduce a lot of new diseases and pathogens like the Asian fish tapeworm, and could possibly even hybridize with some of the native shiners, causing some significant genetic impacts. Currently, they've been found outside of their native range in some of the American states. A lot of the continental U.S., they're found especially in urban streams in metropolitan Atlanta, Georgia, which is in the southeastern United States. They have been considered invasive in 15 states such as Alabama, Virginia, California, and Arizona. Of course, there are more than that. So currently, from this article, they haven't been reported in Canada, but the fact that they're able to get as far north as Virginia tells that they would probably be able to survive some of those colder temperatures. And since they are used for bait fish, the possibility is very high for them to be introduced. So to manage them, there's really not been a ton of management as far as them being currently there. However, there are some things that are kind of proactive rather than reactive. They've been prohibited to possess, transport, buy, release, sell in those regions of Canada where they're not yet introduced, but there's a lot of concern for them being introduced. That goes for any invasive species. Just some other things, some good tips to prevent that from becoming a problem. Don't flush your aquarium pets down the toilet, because if they do manage to survive, they can become introduced as well as they can pass on those diseases. And of course, do not release them purposefully into the wild, as well as do not empty the contents of a bait bucket into any body of water, because even if there's no adult fish there, there could possibly be eggs there if you've had them long enough, or if one of them had eggs and released them within the bait bucket. And of course, if there's live fish, they can become introduced pretty easily. But that is my most wanted for today. It's not super widespread yet, but it has a lot of chance to become a very big invasive freshwater fish.
Right. Well, it's interesting how some of these things is like they're native to the U.S., but yeah, they're still invasive to the U.S. just because of how big the U.S. is,
Yeah,
and how different ecosystems are.
correct.
I think that's interesting to talk about when we talk about these invasives.
Yeah, I mean, even something that is even within one country, it's native to one region, but can become invasive in another. To think of it, some of that, like that Gulf of Mexico drainage to the areas of California, that'd be like crossing half of the continent of Europe, if not a good portion of it, like almost from like Greece to Spain, I think comparatively, if not further. So it's a pretty significant distance for those who are not super familiar with the United States. A couple thousand miles. So it's, for something this small, that is a big jump.
Right. That's going to do it for you, Alex. That's going to do it for
Yes, sir.
us. So as always, I've been Tyler. That's been Alex. We implore you to follow us on Spotify at Life the Complete Story. Subscribe to our YouTube page at Life the Complete Story. Make sure you're liking, commenting, hit the notification bell so you know when we get new episodes. I just put a couple out last week.
Fantastic.
More today.
Catching up.
Follow us on Instagram at Life Complete Story. I'm pointing things that don't exist. We get clips there. You get your more amazing species there. Follow us on Facebook at Life the Complete Story. You get news articles there. You know, when I find new exciting things, I will post them there. Kind of give a little intro about it, so you know if it's worth your time. Follow us on TikTok. It's back at Life Complete Story. More clips there. I think I got. Email us at lifecompletestory@gmail.com if you have something that you can't fit in a comment or something like that you want us to cover, that you liked, that we missed, something like that. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think that's about it. So, as we say at the end of every episode, keep learning and learn something new. You'll never know what you find interesting. But I've been Alex. That has been Tyler. Thank you for joining us for this week on Life the Complete Story, and we will see you next time.